I didn't know that you were covering your mouth. I was just like, wow, what did we just watch? Hi, everybody.
Wait, I've got all of the wrong assets. What are we doing here?
What's happening
What is
right
going
now? What
on
was
here?
that? Why was he holding a doll?
There we go. Why do you think Riker is holding a doll?
Hi, donut dummy.
Can you guess?
I want a donut now. I'm sorry, I'm distracted. Why is he holding a doll?
It's
Voodoo?
It's a little doll of...
Was he trying to take out Picard so he could take over the ship?
It's the
No,
one
he
way.
wasn't.
It's the one way he's going to be captain of the Enterprise.
Is that really true?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's a little doll. But do you want to see Picard's reaction to seeing the doll?
Yes, I do. But after I put on some music. Right. Yes. That's the appropriate reply.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi everyone. So, spoiler, I forgot to upload the Deep Space.
That's not a spoiler. That's an admission.
But guess what? I can live with it. I've messed up intros. I'm an accessory to shit things.
Thanks everybody for joining us for a live taping of Captain's Pod. We're really glad that you're here, and thank you for being with us. No, we're just getting started. CDR,
and we're done. We're out.
Is it Captain Picard Day?
No, that's what the episode is. So it's Captain Picard Day in the episode, and so all of the kids have made like tributes to him. And
you're a star, that's why.
And Micah wants to walk away with the little doll of Picard. And Deanna won't let him walk away with it.
So who made the doll?
A child.
Which is funny because Picard does not like children.
No. But he's a role model. Okay. Stop it. Stop it. I didn't mess up. This is a great question. Who in real life, who made the doll?
Oh, probably somebody that's like on the set, right? Like the costume designer with their little extra strips of fabric that they have.
How is it not the family members of like the cast and crew? Like we've got an episode this season where this happens. Bring us your effigies to Picard.
Meow. Oh, the cat has been meowing like mad.
Oh, the cat has been unimpressed of late.
The prop master. That's it.
That's who it was. That's fair.
Hey, art department. We need a doll of Picard, but it needs to be bad, like a child would make it.
Hey, I think that's a solid doll.
I remember when we went to that, I think we talked about this already, so I won't spend much time on this thought, but maybe we just talked about it in person and not on the show.
Maybe.
So when we went to the museum in Milton Keynes,
and
we were looking at all the props of these
the film and sci-fi museum.
Yes. So we're looking at props from like Stargate.
I thought you were struggling to say Star Trek.
What was that show called?
What's that? Trek Among the Stars?
What is it? I don't remember it. I think it was like Stargate and just all these other ones. I mean, there was just a bunch.
There's Alien, there's Lord of the Rings, there's Doctor Who, Star Wars, Stargate, Star Trek. Lots of them.
And I think what was really impressive to me is that these were props that were used on set, and they were not perfect. And sometimes when I'm making something, I think it needs to be so perfect. And it was such a nice reminder that even like famous movies put something on screen that did what it needed to do, and we're moving on. It doesn't have to hold up to the scrutiny of someone picking it up and examining all of its just special things. Now, like the ones for Lord of the Rings were magnificent. They were meticulous. They were so beautiful. There was like the Sauron mask was there for the helmet. Oh my God, it was incredible.
But then there was one of the phaser rifles from First Contact, and it looked janky as heck.
It did.
It looked like I could have made a better phaser rifle, but this would be one in the background that just was on screen for like, maybe not even on screen. It's just an extra who may or may not end up in the background of a shot. So it didn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
It didn't even have a trigger, did it?
No, it really did just look like a rectangular piece of metal.
You'd have to go pew 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 pew.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm reeling. I'm reeling from this comment.
Temu Star Wars. It should have just been called Sun Fights.
I don't even know how to approach that.
You know what? It's not for everybody.
Star Trek came first. That's what counts.
We are going to be discussing today Deep Space. We're still in our favorites season, and we're going to be doing. What was it? You said it was the most requested episode.
This is the
today?
most requested episode, and I'm going to cut you off there, Danae, because it's the most requested episode, and it's so important, it's so special that I've drafted in some extra help to get through this episode, and we have a special guest that will be beaming in at any second.
You didn't tell me.
Probably right now. That will be beaming in.
It's
at any
you.
second.
Holy cow!
We've got a Dave Ellis.
Here I am.
Here he is.
Permission to come aboard.
Permission granted, sir. The look on her face is perfect.
It's so good to see you.
That is exactly what I wanted.
Oh, look at that. I can still be surprised.
Son David.
That's amazing.
How are you doing, sir?
I am doing great. How about you?
Yeah, really, really, really good. I don't know. We're going to do a bit of technical stuff in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Can you turn up your mic at all? Do you have the ability to do that?
I can do it.
Oh, can you do it too?
Yeah, you keep talking.
Say something intelligent, David.
Something intelligent, David.
Oh, you did. No, that was the best answer. It really was.
So, chat, if you guys can let us know how our volume kind of sounds in relation to each other, that'll help us to make sure you can hear everybody.
I'm so sorry that I'm so sorry that we didn't get Andrew Robinson. I tried. I tried.
Who's Andrew Robinson?
Well, that would be great.
It's Garak.
Oh, Garak. That's interesting. I can't wait to talk about this.
Wait, Link, you jerk. So a few, probably longer than that, like 6 months ago or something like that, I was emailed, and we kind of came up between each other that if we ever did In the Pale Moonlight, Dave would come and join us and talk about it, because it is here. I think it's your all-time favorite episode. Is that right?
Well, there's like 940 episodes of Star Trek now. And it's really hard to nail down just one favorite. But if somebody presses me, In the Pale Moonlight is it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So imagine that conversation. You're just like, no, tell me. No, tell me now. No, which one is it? No, you have to compare. You have to compare them. You have to decide.
It's very telling that I haven't shared my top 5.
Yeah.
I still haven't done it.
Yeah. Thank you, Donut. Yep. There's going to probably be a little bit of difference just because of environments, but as long as you guys can hear us all clearly, I think we're going to be great.
Yeah. And we'll have a nice clean audio edit as well. Okay. You can continue your spiel now, because I want to do the rest of the introductions when we get into 10 forward. But yes, we've drafted in someone extra this week.
So we will be live with you guys for the remainder of the show today, obviously now with a guest. And so we'll be chatting with you for just a little bit longer, and then we'll go live for the actual recording of our podcast, where we are not talking as directly with you. We do see your comments, and we do try to pin them so that we can either pop them up on the screen while we're talking about whatever you're also talking about. But because of the delay, we're oftentimes a little bit ahead of where you might be at. We also pin your comments for the end of the show, and we also like to steal them sometimes. I steal your sins, although I do try to shout you out because I do like your work.
I do not.
And then at the end of the recording of the podcast, we'll pop back over and just chat for a little bit with you guys directly again. So thank you for being here. You can catch all of the previous episodes of our recording of Captain's Pod on both platforms that we are live on, which is on YouTube and on Twitch. Although if you're watching on Twitch, they only stay on our Twitch side for like 2 weeks. So if you ever want to go back and watch any of the other live shows, you can catch them on the CinemaSins Podcast Network channel on YouTube. And we will pop up your comments just like you're seeing now from both platforms. So those of you who are watching on YouTube, hi, it's nice to see you. Those of you on Twitch, thank you for being here, of course. And for those of you guys who watch later, you amaze us. Thank you for watching this, even though you could just listen to the podcast.
Crazy, beautiful people.
It's wild.
Yeah.
But we appreciate all of you guys.
But do join the live show if you like to see people giving me shit, because it happens frequently.
All the time.
all day long.
Well,
okay.
This is exciting. Okay, so do you want to just jump right in?
Yeah,
then?
we're gonna jump right in.
Okay.
We're gonna get right into it before I get too excited.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's an R-rated show.
It's an R-rated fucking show, everyone.
Okay.
Very aware that
That was
Iris
so
is like
aggressive.
10 minutes,
She's
like 10
just, like,
feet
on the
away. Other side of the door. Definitely heard that.
She's definitely in the other room.
Guess what? I can live with it. Okay. Welcome to 10 Forward.
He said too much today, is it?
Yep. I actually slipped 2 of them into the intro that Danae wouldn't have noticed because she hadn't seen the episode yet. Amazing. Okay. Welcome to 10 Forward, the part of the show where we grab something from the replicator and share our immediate thoughts and feelings on the episode we just watched together. Most important question first. What is your thing of choice, Ambassador?
Yeah, it was some kind of let me look it up. Hold on a second. I got to find it. It was like a cauliflower.
Yes.
It was some kind of a blue liquid that definitely had to have some more aromatics, but you know what? It was pretty good.
Romulan cauliflower?
Is that was it really
cauliflower? Romulan cauliflower drink.
Why
That's
did they call
it
cauliflower?
Well,
of all things.
It's what it is.
All right.
I personally would like to request a certain short film maker of 359, Commander Dave Ellis, who is going to be joining us this week.
Well, you got me.
Yay,
just the replicated version of me.
It worked. That almost never happens. I secretly wish for that every week, and this time it actually worked.
Oh, that's so scary. Like you just replicate a person and they just sort of like
but it's still that like
morph out of it.
It's still the rectangle hole, and you just like get forced out of it and then form into the man that I want.
Birthing chamber.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my aromatics aren't correct.
But you do get used to them. They're very convincing.
I've been told.
God. Yeah. What are you? Is it in the positive or the negative that your aromatics aren't matching?
Well, I guess it all depends on your taste.
I guess that's true.
Very true.
That's true.
That's very true. Well, we are wrapping up, as we said at the top of the show, our fan favorite season, and Dave is one of the many people who emailed in the Pale Moonlight on his list, and we made a pact that I can live with several months ago, that if we ever covered In the Pale Moonlight, I would bring Dave back on. For those of you that don't know, we last had Dave on the show to talk about 359, his multi-award winning short film made by this lovely genius. And we've drafted him back in to talk about In the Pale Moonlight.
That's right. Drafted, replicated, bamboozled.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing quite well, thank you. And always great to have an excuse to watch this episode again. Not that we don't need
the excuse, do we? Should just be constantly playing in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ambassador, do you mind if the commander gives the synopsis this week?
No, not at all. Go for it.
Oh, wow. And
yep, I put you on the spot for this one.
Okay, so in the midst of the Dominion War, the Federation is doing badly, as are all their allies. The only way that Sisko can see to get the Federation back in the war is to bring the Romulans in on the Federation's side of the war. Unfortunately, the Romulans really don't want to do that. They're happy to have the Dominion as an ally that they don't help and just let them do whatever they want. But Sisko sees a way to bring them into the war by maybe fudging the facts just a little bit.
Yeah, just slight minor fudge.
That's a good synopsis.
I love it. Ambassador, I'm dying to hear yours.
Oh gosh.
You now have because Dave did the proper synopsis.
Yeah,
I'll you get to do your silly one.
And the way that Sisko decides to do that is to go to a tailor.
Yes.
And really just experiment with the gray area of morality.
Mm-hmm.
And this episode is a personal log that we were never meant to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that. Oh, in this episode, we get to see Quark.
No, I forgot that scene happens, and when I realized he was injured, I was like, "Oh no, Danae's gonna hate this just because Quark was hurt."
This, I would say that this is an episode that you would definitely want to show someone if you're doing is it Garak?
Garak, yeah. It's the ultimate Garak episode. It really is.
If you're doing like a bad guys series, like bad guys you love to hate, this is definitely a really good one to kind of show, because I think Sisko could be a bad guy you love to hate. I think Garak could be a bad guy you love to hate. Even the Romulan that we only see for just a little bit could be a bad guy you love to hate. So this is definitely like one of those bad guy episodes, like a good episode of bad guys.
So before we get into specifics, overall general thoughts and feelings, Ambassador.
This is like, even though it's definitely a more serious episode, as most Deep Space Nine are, my overall thoughts and feelings are that this is like a really good way to, I assume, shift the entire dynamic of Deep Space Nine. Like, I can't imagine watching this as a fan as it's coming out and you're just like, Dominion War, Dominion War, Dominion War, Dominion War. We're not doing good. This is not going great. And then all of a sudden it's like, this is how things turn in our favor. And it's presented in this really sort of subverted moral kind of way, using your captain, as the delivery device for dabbling in deceit. Not only deceit, but like Starfleet approved deceit. So it kind of shows a dirtier, darker version of the fa la 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 sort of vibe that I'm
the Boy Scout vibe of Starfleet has been described online.
Yeah. So I really liked it. It's a very serious one, and the tone is very serious, but this is a fantastic episode of television.
I think that's a really good way to describe it. Whether you like Star Trek or not, whether this is your thing or not, I think it's hard to deny that this is just a well-crafted episode of television. Before I do kind of want to run through it almost scene by scene, not in like this is going to take 7 weeks kind of way, but because it's a very chronological type of episode in the terms of like how it reveals itself. So overall thoughts, Dave, why does this crack your list of being just up there as incredible Star Trek?
Well, at the top level, it does what Star Trek does best. It's an episode that really makes you think about the story and about how you might react in a situation like that. I think all the best Star Trek episodes make you think, but this one makes you think about Star Trek in a way that up to this point. I remember seeing this episode for the first time when it originally came out, and I was blown away because I'd never thought about Starfleet and Starfleet officers in this kind of light before. And I mean, it even gets the whole needs of the many versus the needs of the few. This is that argument, but it is on such a grand scale. It's not just I'm going to steal the Enterprise and go, rescue Spock. This is I'm going to put an entire race into a war that they don't want to be in just to benefit my side.
Yeah.
But it
really is the flip side of that.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And it really is the flip side of that argument, because like you said, with Kirk stealing the Enterprise to rescue one man, this is also to potentially save 3 species worth of people for the sake of the Romulan people. So the numbers are still, if you're just going by math, they're still on Sisko's side because he's technically saving more people in the long run. So it's really, really great on so many levels, and it is probably the most morally ambiguous we ever see Starfleet become.
Yeah, it's true. And it's something that I don't think could have been explored on any of the other Star Trek series in that era, definitely.
No.
Maybe Enterprise, but I feel like, Archer would just accidental himself into getting an entire race into a war. He wouldn't go out, try to do it and have it happen. He would just accidentally do it.
He might do it through incompetence. It's absolutely true. So one of my favorite facts about this episode, Danae, can you just take a guess where in the Pale Moonlight the title originates from. If you were to take a guess where Star Trek pulled this from, where would it be?
A vampire series.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Well, my initial instinct was that it was from like some old piece of literature or an old poem or something like that. But my research, and I'm sure Dave will be able to confirm this for me, is that it comes from Tim Burton's Batman 1987 movie.
Oh my gosh.
So the Joker says to Batman, "Do you ever dance in the devil with the pale moonlight?" And
interesting. Kind of like the idea of dancing with your own devil in the pale moonlight. Gotcha.
Exactly. And I think Ronald D. Moore titled the episode, and he assumed that Batman pulled it from some piece of literature and didn't assume that anybody wrote that just for a Batman movie and just assumed it was Shakespeare or something. So yeah, that's my initial favorite fact. That's just, it's so bonkers. That's so strange.
I also, before we kind of like get into the nuts and bolts of the episode and kind of things like scenes or characters and questions and all that stuff, at the beginning of the show, you wanted to tell me some facts about today's episode, and now I want to know what they are.
Oh, like the context facts?
Yeah, you wanted to tell me 2 points of context, and I said, no, don't tell me anything.
This is really cool. Yeah, I wonder how much this would have helped. And I'm glad we didn't, and I don't think we needed it in the end. But I just wanted to remind you that we were in the middle of the Dominion War, and things were going really freaking badly, because this is like episode 19 of season 6. So we as viewers have been in the Dominion War for a while. It is going badly, and pretty much every episode has been telling us that. But this episode does a great job of setting that up anyway, with the casualty lists and whatnot. And the only other thing was to give you some context about Garak, because I think we've mentioned Garak, but he's such a focal point of this episode. If you don't know how sneaky he is and how like he is a suspected spy, this episode is 6 seasons of building up Garak as maybes and ifs, and there are rumors, to firmly placing him as, no, he has the power and he is capable of a great many things.
Can we start by talking about Garak? Because I feel like he's the main character of this episode.
He absolutely is, and everybody will love that we're talking about Garak. Give me your Garak thoughts.
So I do have a question for you, and this might not be easily answered, but I'm glad to have both of you here, because I think like as described by Sarah in the chat, what a delicious character indeed.
Isn't he just?
The acting in this episode is so juicy, but Garak obviously is the dessert of this episode. Like even the Romulan that popped on board for a sec, I was like, wow, he's delightful to watch. Really draws you in, even though there's so much seriousness going on. But anyway, my question, I think, to start off with is, after this episode, like, did this episode, as if watching Deep Space Nine, both of you, did you feel like you had a better understanding that Garak is, yes, a spy and yes, connected, but also loyal? Because he could have done so many things here to subvert his place on, like, whatever he's doing on Deep Space Nine, whatever dream he's living out as a tailor.
Hiding is the best word.
Okay. So, maybe his options are more limited than I have an understanding, because I haven't seen basically any of this show.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if there was a question about his quote unquote loyalty, if a spy like him can have one, did this make you more like him as a character? Did you feel more comfortable with him going forward in Deep Space Nine? Like what happened after this episode for this character for you guys?
I'm gonna let Dave go first on this one.
Yeah, I already liked Garak. I liked Garak from the first time he showed up, and he and you don't see any of it in this episode, but he and Dr. Bashir have a really interesting relationship on a lot of levels.
Oh
yes, you got it.
What did we watch? That was that an animated?
Yep.
We watched those two together. Did. Oh my God! Sorry.
No, I was gonna bring it in, and I'm so glad you did. The penultimate episode of Lower Decks brings an alternate version which canonizes. There's a timeline where Bashir and Garak are a married couple.
And now I want to go back and watch that one.
Yes.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you. I'm just remembering that we did see that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Go on.
But up to this point, Garak has been anywhere from just he always refers to himself as just a simple tailor. And it's always been obvious from day one that he was not just a simple tailor. And prior to this episode, it is revealed that he did work for the
Obsidian
Order. His father or adopted father was Enabran Tain, who was the head of the Obsidian Order. You get to meet him earlier in the series as well, and I would argue that Garak had already proven how far he can go as a villain when he tortured Odo in one episode.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Odo had been captured and was on a Romulan ship when they were going to attack the Founders' homeworld. They're the ones who are the head of the Dominion.
They're the ones that live in the weird hole thing.
They live in the bucket. Oh no! So that's the Bajoran aliens.
They're not the Founders.
No, they're not the Founders.
Oh, okay.
No, the wormhole aliens are different.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, Odo's people are the Founders. Spoiler.
Yeah.
Alert. Garak was in a position where he was being told to torture Odo for information about about his people. And he had a device that he used on Odo that wouldn't let Odo go back to liquid form. And Odo was literally falling apart while Garak pumped him for information. So Garak is certainly a bad guy, but he always operates on a level that gets him what he needs out of any given situation. In this episode, I feel like, and it's in the way it's acted in the scene where when Sisko asks him if he's in or out, and Garak's like, oh, he's like, I'm in. And
yeah,
that expression was something between, oh, this will really be fun, and I want to just see how far you'll go.
Yeah,
yes, this is my favorite flavor of ice cream. Of course I'm going to partake.
And to have so much of your face obscured by prosthetics and still be able to emulate and to act and kind of convey these really interesting sort of nuanced vibes, this sort of joy of, I'm in this, like, I don't know, is the word salacious the right word? That's not the right word. But like he just there's like a desire.
He's reveling in it.
He really likes the chaos, and the control, and it reminds me of like almost some Quark a little bit, like the position of power that Sisko allows these characters to be in over his decision making, and them realizing that they don't normally get to be in that position of influence. So you're like wondering how far they're going to push it. Like, wherever happened that bio liquid that was sent out? Like,
oh my gosh,
there needs to be a couple episodes about what happened to that stuff, because he got like Sisko had to do some crazy stuff to achieve it. But to watch Garak specifically in that moment you're talking about, that was really fun, because you're just like, oh, he just made a deal with the devil.
He really did.
But like a super lovable one in an interesting way.
Well, and that's it. He is so lovable. Like there are actors and characters that define species. Worf and Michael Dorn is a great example for the Klingons. Garak and Andrew Robinson really defined Cardassians for me, and it's very similar to Worf because he's an outcast. He's on Deep Space Nine because he's been expelled by the Cardassians. He's not allowed to return to his home planet, so he is an exile among Starfleet, and he's just a great character, but he still holds the stereotypical things about Cardassians that you would expect, or that Star Trek has kind of crafted. So he's a great way to delve into the species without having a Star Trek Cardassia TV show.
He's not only among Starfleet officers, he's among Bajorans who the Cardassians occupied. So he's not trusted by the Starfleet officers entirely. He's pretty much hated by all the Bajorans. And he's stuck on a Bajoran station, the only Cardassian there.
It's amazing.
Well, I want to get back to like how this impacted the future of this character in just a second, but I want to bunny trail off while we're talking about a character like him being this, like, what makes him unique. And my question is, can we have a character like Garak without having a character like Quark? Because Quark is someone who defines the race, and like you learn to love his badness. Whereas I feel like Garak, the way you're talking about him, is a Kardashian true and true, but like you learn to love that part of their nature because of the good character work. Like I don't know that I liked any kind of Ferengi until Quark, because that was just so well, like you begin to almost respect the law of Quark. So
he lives it and makes it real instead of just this arbitrary set of things that every Ferengi must do. He embodies it and lives it.
Like in Star Trek just has a way of putting characters in front of you that you're like, okay, you know, this is kind of an uncomfortable character to get to know. And to me, that's like a Quark character.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to like Worf. Worf is just his gruffness is very different than the evil nature of Quark. And Garak has that evil nature. He very much seems to be like lawfully evil.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I think
the difference between the Ferengi and the Cardassians is the Ferengi pretend to be evil and mischievous, but they're just kind of, you know, out for profit. Whereas Garak pretends to be all nice, and he deep down actually is part of a probably the most evil part of a race that is generally evil on Star Trek.
Yeah. I think I'm talking more about like the show intentionally kind of warming us, the viewer, up to watching and warming up to a character more than like the differences in their race. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like can you, if we didn't have characters that test us out to like the darker parts of the inner workings of what makes a character work, like Quark or others, I don't know that Garak would be as easy to watch.
Yeah, I think ultimately Garak does come out as being somebody we're allowed to like, and we genuinely do like, because I think initially the show was pitching him as he'll do anything to save his own skin. And he has the ability to maneuver and chess piece his way through any situation, as long as the outcome is that he is still breathing at the end of it. But as the series goes on and on and on, he does make a few decisions where it's like, that wasn't completely self-serving. That was because you've bonded with somebody. And he may lie about it and say, no, dear doctor, that was completely in my own interest. Deep down, I don't think the writers could help but give him some heart and compassion. So it's those episodes where he does something selfless that I think tip him over into not just self-serving, and if there's a good outcome, it's just a coincidence that it lined up with him doing something that kept him alive, into actually, no, I think he would push himself to save these people that he's come to know and love over 7 years. But he's the closest to that gray line. Like he is, I could accept an argument either way.
But is it easier for you to watch a character like that, having had characters like Quark to watch? That's kind of my point that I'm getting at.
That's interesting.
I think that I guess Worf does the same thing for Klingons. What Quark does for the Ferengi and what Garak does for the Cardassians and Worf does for the Klingons is they flesh out what those races can be, up to the point those characters were main characters on the Star Trek show. They were pretty one-dimensional species. And once you got these characters that give you like the shades of gray for all of those species, you get to you feel like they're more, you know,
acceptable.
More acceptable in the case of, you know, Quark and Garak, for sure.
It's just, to me, this episode like really pushes that Star Trek is, once again, like you mentioned, like putting these things in our face. But it's not just that Quark is gray, in the gray area sometimes of likability, or that Garak is in the gray area of likability, or like that you want to root for them. Like there's a certain point where you stop, but Sisko enters that field too. And the show does the thing that I think is so clever with the writing, where ultimately the worst part of what's done can land on Garak's shoulders. And while Sisko opened the door for him, we, the viewer, don't have to have our morality questioned so much, because they give the out to Garak. They say that this is the murder of the final crafting, the inner working is ultimately the deeper doing of Garak. Garak did the deed.
Yeah, I think that's why we can eventually be okay with it. Because we're pinning
it's
it
not
on Garak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so to now complete the circle, does that change how you felt about Garak after this episode? Because I feel like this is a really big Garak moment. Now, Sisko obviously showing his decision making and how that impacts everything, and that ultimately was kind of like his pushing to get all this done. But did Garak change for you after this? Did you respect him more? Like, did he feel like a more likable character after this?
I think I was scared of him more. I think I was more aware of what he's capable of, because like the great example is Tolar, the blue alien. The way he reacts to the mention of Garak's name, and whatever Sisko says or does to him, Garak always has the final line that is simply, "I'll see you in your quarters." Like all of those bits, and then the final punch at the end. It really cemented that, thank goodness Garak is on our side for now. So yeah, it definitely made me respect his power. And like, man, if he could, when you sometimes see somebody that's super smart, but they're freaking lazy. And like, imagine if you had 10% motivation, you could achieve anything. It's that kind of thing with Garak. If he had a reason to be against the Federation, I'd be really scared. So I think it cemented that for me.
Yeah, it's hard for me to remember what it was like the first time I watched the series through, because I've watched it so many times now. Now it seems like this is just another piece of the Garak puzzle, because I'm not going to give away too much of what happens after this with Garak, but Garak goes through quite a character arc through the show, where he's in a position at the end of Deep Space Nine that you never really would have expected Garak to be in.
Yeah.
And the janitor.
Yeah. Better for making clothes.
But yeah, he I mean, this is just a piece of that puzzle. It's just one more thing that shows you, wow, Garak is really resourceful, and he's willing to go to any length to do whatever it is he's going to do.
Yeah.
And what he chooses to do as the show goes on is what makes his character really interesting for the rest of the show. And it's, like I said, it's fascinating where he ends up eventually.
I do have a question. Is his motivation to become involved at this level, to burn all of his favors back on the home world, to have his contacts ultimately murdered and just have to kind of be like, well, that happened.
Yeah, that's a resource.
Is his motivation that the usurping of the people in charge of Cardassia are, if they're not in charge, he has more leverage to potentially go home or put himself into a different position than what he is right now? Like, is that part of his motivation, or is he just bored?
I think the impression that you get eventually is that he is proud of what Cardassia was and is not happy with the way that Cardassia is, and would like to be part of his culture again.
Okay.
But now he's in a gray area where he can't possibly be a part of that, because the current people are, they hate him as much as he hates them. So he can't go home.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a couple of people that framed this really well in the live chat, and it's that Garak is committed to Cardassia, like, and what it was in its prime, to excuse the pun. But he's a patriot for Cardassia, and he wants the best for his people. And that's one of the reasons he accepted exile, is because it wasn't just to save himself. He believed that was the best thing to allow the Obsidian Order to continue as well. But now that they're in cahoots with the Dominion, this is the worst version of Cardassia. So it's not that he wants to see Starfleet succeed.
Right.
I genuinely believe that he's trying to do the best thing for his people.
It's so great that this episode seemed to give me that impression.
It's amazing. Yeah, that's really good.
Because it packed so much in, and this is one that really has great dialogue throughout. And there's a lot of information that is completely, like, I'm not paying attention to these details, because like the different people that are involved in the Dominion War, there's a lot that's kind of lost on me, the viewer, that's just dropping in and plopping out.
Yeah.
But Garak was somebody I definitely wanted to start with, because he obviously had such a key role, and even the end when Sisko comes to him and punches him and he's mad because he knows that Garak put the bomb on the shuttle that killed this Romulan senator. Yeah. That exchange between he and Sisko is so powerful. I would watch that scene a couple more times if I had the time for it.
It's so good.
And I think one of the reasons is because there's just this level of, I'm going to say unhinged, but that implies that Garak's not in control, but he super is in control because he's not at all surprised to see Sisko, or he's almost like there's this spell in Dungeons and Dragons, absorb elements. And it seems like he just takes Sisko's rage and is like, yep, I've been waiting for that, and uses that fuel and just kind of hands it back over to him and has been just waiting to deliver the news that you wanted me to do this. Like,
it gives me tingles.
So good.
All of his energy is like, if you stop punching me for 2 seconds, I'll explain everything and it's going to make sense. And he has every single word is like, yes, I know it's scripted, it's not real, but I believe that Garak has every word of this speech scripted, ready to go, and like just is trying to get it out between punches because he knows it's logical, and he knows that Sisko wouldn't have come to him if he wasn't ready for this outcome. And it's the way Andrew Robinson delivers that entire scene, like defensively, but also attacking with his viewpoint that he knows he's got like the winning argument. Oh man, that scene. In an episode filled with powerful scenes. If your conscience is
bothering you, you should soothe it with the knowledge that you have just saved the entire Alpha Quadrant, and all it cost was the life of one Romulan senator, one criminal, and the self-respect of one Starfleet officer. I don't know about you, but I call that a bargain.
It's so good. And because he knows, like, I love Sisko, but the man has an ego. There is no way that you accept being the prophet to an entire species, reluctantly or otherwise. And I think every captain needs to have an element of ego, and Garak is feeding that ego with that. Like, you can bear the burden of this evil deed, and you take that on your conscience because that's the sacrifice of saving the entire galaxy. And he can live with it because that guilt, he's going to own that guilt, and he's going to treasure it because it means that the good guys win.
Before we move on to anything else too, the other thing that I really loved about that is when Sisko, like, he's like, you killed him, and you killed Tolar, Blular as well. And I knew he was dead the second that he delivered the line, "I'll see you in your quarters."
Yep.
But it's how he delivers the line.
With a smile.
And this is why this is a great episode to watch. Yeah. Because there's just it's so fun to watch the embodiment of these characters that I am not at all used to seeing. Like this seedy guy that comes in to make this holodeck kind of thing, and usually he's used to doing like people's fantasy holodeck stuff. And, and instead he's doing something, and like all the loose ends that are getting tied up, Garak's like, I know what's got to be done. And it's not even really a concern to him to have someone that can make those decisions. You're right. There's like, it's terrifying. So it's good to know that he's on our side for an hour, for whatever. But that, when he delivered that line, that doesn't work unless the actor playing the blue guy, Tolar, did such a great scene with Sisko when he was rescued from the Klingons, because that scene where he's just like, hey, it's good to see you, man. Blah,
Let's get some Orion slave girls. Let's do it.
Pew, 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 pew. And then they just mention Garak's name, and his entire countenance changes. Yeah. And that's when little things like that is what writers have to do to give the unknown audience any kind of understanding. That gave me almost everything I needed to know about Garak.
Absolutely.
Was just like, oh shit. Like, he's not just the guy that I just saw in that scene, which was an interesting person and like a little hard to read. It went to, oh, he's dangerous. So then when the payoff of I'll see you later, I was like, oh, he did.
And he knows it. And he could run, but he knows he's dead. It's when he's in the turbo lift with Sisko, and he's like, I may have intimated that if he tried to get out the door, it would explode. And I genuinely don't know if he did it or not. I don't know if he rigged the door to explode. And that's so
just not to dwell on
great.
such things.
Yes.
And he's talking to the
Yes,
audience. He's
he
like,
is.
just don't dwell on it. I was like,
But-
I believe you.
But like, you can say that, and if the acting hadn't hit right, the
Mhm.
writing hadn't hit right, that could have been just a comedy line, you know. But there's just enough going on, especially with the delivery of Tolar, that I knew that we were in a dangerous situation. So then when he says, I'm going to go on the shuttle and just look for some intel, I was like, yeah, what are you actually doing?
Yeah.
Or with like, I don't know. He is such an intriguing character. I would watch a show where he's the main character.
This is why
like a little seedy version of Star Trek, you know?
Oh my gosh, there's Star Trek Garak has been called for multiple times, and we've had several emailers that have. I have a compilated list from somebody that has done all of the Garak episodes.
Oh,
and
it's
says
so
this
fun.
is how you should. We could easily do a Garak season. He is, to use some video game parlance, the BFG of Deep Space Nine. He's the big fucking gun that actually gets used. So a lot of times a series will have this secret weapon, they'll have this thing that is built up, and you never really see it used to full effect. This episode is using Garak to full effect. It's like, oh, you thought we were bluffing? We unleash him, and guess what? He gets the Romulans to join a galactic war. One man did that. And I believe it. It's not just contrivance, and a bit of luck was on his side. He is meticulous with this plan, and he thinks he's letting Sisko thinks he's making the choices, but he's really not. Garak knows what choices Sisko will make and has it all buttoned up. Oh, it's so good. So good. Let's get into this episode. Does loads of controversial things for Star Trek, loads of new things. Top of the list as a TV nerd is this direct-to-camera thing. To my knowledge, the first time Star Trek ever did this, something I'm sure Gene would not have approved of, because it reminds you that you're watching a TV show. So there is so much eye contact, but I think this episode is still incredible without it, but it is next level because of the eye contact with Sisko and just letting Avery Brooks sink in to the entire scene and just make some eye contact with the camera, and it's just magic. Danae, as a non-TV nerd, was it distracting? Did you love it? Did it help or hinder?
Stop staring at me, Schwan.
Stop staring at me, Sisko.
I have to believe that Sisko has a computer device in his personal room that has like a monitor in front of him that he's looking at. Like, they're just, I wish they'd maybe just spun the camera around to see what he's looking at, just so that I have a little bit of an understanding of what his display is. That's the only thing that maybe I would have kind of been like, oh, that's what he's looking at. In my imagination, it's like WALL-E or Johnny Five, kind of like this little personal robot that pops in, just like kind of pops in. It's just like, like a robot therapist, sort of there. But he is talking to an empty room, but he's talking to a very specific thing in the empty room. And I know that it's me for the effect that you're talking about. So was it distracting? No, I don't think it was distracting in a bad way, because I'm going to make my imagination make it make sense. I thought it was a really clever way of drawing the audience into an uncomfortable conversation about war. Yeah.
Dave, thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think that it's almost necessary to frame this as a captain's log, because nobody other than Garak really knows what happened in this episode. So the normal way that you would progress the story by talking to other characters, he even says, I can't talk to anybody about this, not even Dax. So we need him to be talking to us about it, just so that he can move the story along. But I think
what if it would have been Picard's doll? He's just talking to sorry. Carry on.
It would not, for many reasons, it would not be an effigy of Picard. Sisko would voodoo doll a Picard doll.
Yes, he would.
Yeah.
But I think that it all, beyond the narrative, the narrative purpose that it serves, I think that it also gives it a lot of power to have Sisko, working out his problems directly to the audience. You're like right there in it with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it would have been so different. A lot of times when you see people doing like a log, they're sort of walking around and just pacing, but how it would have been so I think it would have just created a buffer between us and the reality of what's happening. There's just an intensity that this type of delivery gives. Like, how weird would this episode have been if he's just lying on bed, like with his legs kind of half off, just sort of kicking his little feet while he's, you know what I mean?
So one of the critiques I've seen that kind of leads to that is the intensity and the emotion that Avery Brooks is putting into it, especially when Garak is I think it's when Garak is I can't remember what point it was, but he's basically like really Sisko is torturing himself, and then he gets the casualty list the next day, and that pushes him over the edge.
Yeah.
And he's like, people are dying out there. And it's like, would you be that dramatic on your captain's log? Or would you be more factual about it? Like, that feels like you are doing a monologue on stage in a play. You're doing some Shakespeare. But I still love it. I wouldn't switch it. Like, if you think to yourself, how would I report this log? Would I do this pleading thing? And maybe you would, because you're trying to rationalize the things that you did. Like he said at the top of the episode, I have to talk to somebody I have to talk this through, because what the hell have I just done? But it is a lot for a captain's log.
Yeah, I felt like he was really yelling at himself. He's trying to justify what he did, and I think that's perfectly in keeping with Sisko's character. And he's an extremely emotional guy. He's emotional with other people. Made sense to me that in a personal log where he's essentially arguing with himself over what he did, that he would be just as emotional.
I have gone through some stuff recently in the past few years, and I decided to audio blog about it. And I was very emphatic on a few of them, just hearing myself talk. And he even says, I think at the beginning of the whole episode, I need to justify what has happened. And so it's kind of the same thing. I can relate to that. I need to justify, I need to hear myself explain to myself why I am making these decisions that are changing everything. Like there is only, I've changed everything because of a choice I made, and nothing is the same anymore. Lives are changed. Relationships are different. Like, it's huge, a seismic shift. And that was just from my personal life. He's making a decision for entire planets that don't even know what he has done. So I believed the intensity. It wasn't usually Sisko's a bit distracting to me. I still, like I've said on the show before, and it's a little controversial, and I apologize because I know that it's not. If I watch all of Deep Space Nine, I would definitely have a different, more informed opinion. Sisko is not my favorite. His intense, like when he attacks Bluey, I was like, what the hell? Like, he is, and then his personal, he's like, I'm a bit unhinged. I'm like, fucking kidding, man. Like, yeah, he's a bad guy, but just the intensity. You have to kind of believe it in a way that he is so in the gray, so concerned with being caught, so much pressure. And Garak's like, I got you, brother. That man's dead later tonight. Don't you worry.
I'll do the thing you won't ask me to do.
So the intensity of it's like, oh, he is. So when you said, Dave, that he's really emotional, I appreciated that, because the emotion that he's showing, even in his personal log, and throughout the episode, it's like, oh, that's part of his character. And his delivery, I think, it wasn't really unbelievable to me. It was a bit Kirk-esque a couple times. There's some ways that he kind of like, he kind of like delivers in the sort of cadence that I'm like, oh, that's a Sisko thing, Yeah. So, but it wasn't distracting to me in a bad way. And the eye contact wasn't distracting to me. And the open shirt wasn't distracting to me. Like, he was really just kind of like, God, can you imagine the weight of having to do this? Like, I believed the weight of what he was doing. And the camera wasn't always straight to face. There was some side where it was from the side, but he was always just looking forward and just sort of if I had to make a decision that would bring in an entire empire, knowing that so many are going to die for my own cause, and I had to wrestle with that, I think I would just stare off in the distance too. You know,
it's a famously used interrogation tactic that they put into movies and stuff. If you're being tortured, pick a spot on the wall, hold that spot, and just think about your happy place, and
go someplace else.
Yeah. So I get it, and it's I don't have a thing I would change about it. There is a version of this where, and this is when you mentioned alcoholic beverages at the top of the show. There's a version of this where Sisko doesn't ignore that drink; he keeps drinking it, and he gets gradually drunker as the episode goes on, and he's more not like falling over drunk, but the emotion comes through and he's a bit more sloppy. But they kind of put the kibosh on that for many reasons, like drinking alcohol on TV in the 90s was apparently taboo. But what I do love about this is the gradual stripping down of his uniform through that metaphor. The first jacket comes off, the undershirt gets undone. He is literally stripping himself bare to this log and getting everything out. So yeah, that is really, really powerful.
I think one of the moments that got me, I'm kind of curious, like, what moments got you? Maybe this is a question I can throw back to you, Dave, and obviously Ian, like, what moment in his face to camera, his captain's logs got you? The one that got me the most was when he's like, and then there's a party later on. Just this idea that
a welcome to the war party.
Yeah, you have to kind of like, he's got to walk in there knowing his part in it and no one else knows, and celebrate this. And that was a really emotional thing. But the way he said it, like, there's a party, like this, the way he delivered that line was
the most
really
natural
emotional
thing in the world.
Yeah,
it was really, there's a party.
Yeah, it was just like, I don't know, the irony of it, you know. It was really that moment got me more than anything in his face to cameras. What about you guys? Like, what about his personal log really stood out?
Well, the two lines that I actually wrote down as I was rewatching it were when he says, my cause was righteous, my intentions were good. In the beginning, that seemed like enough. That was like where you can see where sees where his slide started.
Yes.
And the other one was people are dying out there, entire worlds are struggling for their freedom, and here I am still worrying about the finer points of morality.
I love that so much.
And it's such a great line, and it really lays bare the whole the depth of the gray area that he's in. He knows that what he's trying to get done is the thing that needs to get done in order for the good guys to win, essentially. But he also realizes that he has gone so far down the dark path, if you will.
It's great.
Yeah, it's great. It was interesting. It was like the whole conversation. And again, the reason that narrative thing works for me is it's like just peeling away the layers of this story until you get to the very core of it. And it's just really powerful stuff. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's beautifully framed. It's risky to do something that is flashback based because it can kneecap the momentum. It can take you out of scenes. But when the scene that you're being taken out of is to go back to Sisko being this intense, I was like itching to get back to him each time. And to your point about the way he is in the gray area, it's almost selfish if he doesn't do this. I was like, who am I to put my morals above this choice? Like, it would be selfish of him to take the easy road where he has a clear conscience. And can he live with that? Can he live with not doing the hard thing just so that he can sleep at night? He'll take the sleepless nights to do this. And that leads into my favorite part. And I think it'll be most people's favorite part. It's no surprise. It's the shift at the very, very end when he says,
yes,
I will learn to live with it. And I'm tingling, the change of tone. I can live with it. And he's smiling. He's happy. It's like, guess what? Believe me, I can. Like, I've weighed it all up. Yeah, I'm okay with this. This was the right thing to do. Oh, it's so good, because I think 99.9% of other shows would use that as fuel to self-doubt and to like torture himself and hide away in a cupboard and say, I can't live with this. And he's like, you know what? I'm good with it. What 10 out of 10 would recommend. Would absolutely do this with Garak again. Yeah, it's so powerful. It's brilliant acting, brilliant writing.
I also,
and it's interesting to look at. It's interesting to look at this in the through the lens of all of the other Star Trek shows and what the other captains would do. Picard absolutely would never do this. He would let the whole Federation go down for his ideals to be held up.
And we have proof of that with Hugh. He has the opportunity to destroy the Borg, and he says, no, I won't do it, because it's not fair to sacrifice that one life. It's not up to me to do that. He made literally the opposite choice in TNG. It's so freaking good.
Yeah, it really shows that you can justify your choice however you want, which is how the episode started. You do have to sometimes reflect and go, I need to decide if I just made the right decision. That's already done. And when you do that, a lot of times you begin to remind yourself of, here's the facts that were happening that led me to make this decision that I can't undo.
Yeah.
And right decision. But it's interesting because like the flashbacks are his own personal evidence, his own personal, like, this is why I did what I did. For example, one of the things that kind of stood out to me was when they were talking about the Betazoid attack. Like, of course, Star Trek wants to give us, and like, no, not the Betazoids,
not Betazoids. They didn't do anything to anybody.
It was really clever, actually, because I wasn't really invested until they said Betazoid.
That's it. And originally, it's so great, because originally there's a draft where it was Vulcan, but that was too big.
It was
like, it's too... Well, Betazoid is perfect.
But they did say Vulcan. They said that when Betazoid falls in the next thing,
and
they kind of did the domino effect, and then they brought in other planets that people would recognize if they just tuned in for this one episode of Deep Space Nine, like I did, potentially, right? Like, I know Betazoid, like that's my Deanna place. We're not doing that. That's a big no-no. And then Vulcan, no, not my Spock. So like now I'm a little bit invested in it, which I know is really bad, but hey, they're doing what they should be doing as storytellers. But what was interesting is when Sisko was reflecting on that being part of his justification for his choices, is that there was this frustrated moment when they're talking about strategy, like the attack on Betazoid shouldn't have worked, but one ship was just doing this one thing, and then these shields or whatever just happened to not be working. And this is what happens sometimes. You can prepare and you can have everything ready to go, and your plan still fails and you end up losing. And his choice is, all right, we got to turn the tide and we got to do it, rather than potentially fate taking over, which is what Picard would have done. Picard would have been like, no, we're not going to intervene. We're going to go have political conversations. We're going to try to find other ways to negotiate and leverage our other skill set besides this like subterfuge or whatever you want to call it. So I thought that was an interesting moment where the show recognized that even being prepared in a war sense, they still weren't entirely prepared enough against this foe. So it really put to, like what you were saying, Ian, you decided I asked you not to tell me the details, that they're in a really bad position at this moment in the Dominion War. That was a way for the writers to kind of remind, and even though we're trying to be ready, we're still almost like fate's against us. Like,
and it's so effective just to use that casualty list, like that straw that breaks the camel's back. Like there's nothing else that really signifies the cost of the war other than this bloody Friday report that comes out reminding you of what's happening. And it's one of my favorite things about the structure of this episode is the slide that Dave mentioned, like the slide of despair where all of the good intentions are just jettisoned from the ship. The falling of Beta Z, just his questioning his own morals, and each thing is introduced one at a time. Like when Garak's operatives die straight away, he's kind of happy to walk away at that point.
Yes.
But then something sucks him back in.
He just wants to know, like, What do we have options on the amount? I think the captain's log, to kind of wrap that up too. I loved the moments you guys mentioned, but the fade to the black at the end was so powerful too. Just this idea, like I just want to touch on that, like the way that the captain's log ended with him, like you said, Ian, accepting that he was okay with it, like he's getting his mojo back, and he's going to go out and have a good old time at the party. Delete, delete it all.
Oh.
And
so
then
good.
and then the show fades to black. It's like, oh, we have to kind of now get to join this sort of idea that we're supposed to not remember this too. And that was a really clever way to end that face to camera element of the show.
And it is never mentioned again in the show.
That's so fun.
Never go back to it.
Can we talk about the Romulan guy
yes, now? That was my next point. We have to talk about him. How juicy is he? How beautifully gravelly is his voice? How much did you love him, Ambassador?
I loved his controlled way that he was talking. It's like, I don't know if it's just the actor, but he does not use his upper lip very much. And it was amazing. He was just great. So controlled. And the intellectual battlefield that was happening as they were quipping back and forth, that this Romulan character knew his power and was kind of just like, I don't know, he wanted to just go walk around the Deep Space Nine before it was destroyed and just have a little jolly old time before going home. It was kind of like playing with his food in a way.
I can't imagine a Romulan wanting to be in a better position. Like, that is from everything we know from TNG. They love being in a position of power. They won't make the first move because they'll use that against you. So this is the juiciest steak that we've ever seen a Romulan bite into. He has all of the power. If Picard came to this, maybe he'd be intimidated, but Sisko isn't really a good match for Romulans. He is quite brute force-ish and quite aggressive. And I one of my favorite scenes with Dax ever is when she's playing a Romulan and he's pleading with her.
Oh, yes.
Oh, it's so
the role play.
The role play. It's so, she slips into that using her hundreds of years of experience and just pulls that out of like, this isn't a good idea, Benjamin. You got to be better than this. But yeah, the Romulan is excellent. The choice to do the metaphor with the drink was like, the aroma gets more appealing. I could almost be convinced. Where's your proof? It's so good. It's so beautifully crafted.
Yeah, Vreenak is, for the little bit of time that he's on the screen, is one of the most memorable Romulan characters.
He really is.
That whole dressing down of Sisko when he first comes on, like listing out all of what Commander of Deep Space Nine, emissary to the prophets. Thought you'd be taller.
Yes, so good.
Best use of that cliche on film ever.
Yeah, and then to go on is like, well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Well, my opinion of Starfleet officers is so low, you'd have to go very far to disappoint me.
I love it. I love what Romulans can get away with just by being Romulan. I think he also has the award for potentially being, and this is not an easy choice to make, the most memed Star Trek character in all of canon. Like, it's a fake. That delivery is legendary, and it might seem ridiculous, but I love it every time I see it. And you just like have people like when Is It Cake came out, was like, it's a cake, was immediately done.
Yes, that's so
his
funny.
face is so good.
Oh yes.
So I think that's a great segue into that moment. I'm always fascinated by this. I'm obviously waiting for it. Dave's waiting for it. Everybody that has watched this episode at home and has seen it already is waiting for it's a fake. Was it okay for you? Did it feel a bit silly? Was it too intense? There's no reason for him to hold it up to his face other than it's a close-up, so we're going to need you to hold it up to your face. But how did that moment hit you?
No, I loved it. I loved it for a few reasons. When I felt the most tension in this entire episode was when he was walking around that holodeck looking at all the details.
Oh,
I was just like,
oh my gosh.
And he gave nothing away.
No.
My assumption is that he knew pretty quickly, and then he was just playing with his food, just having a good time, knowing that he was in such a position of authority and power. And this is when the episode tips to maybe like you think you know which way it's going to go. Like you think that Sisko and crew, bad guy crew, are going to, not that they're bad guys, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they're going to succeed. Like, is this going to work? To us, it looks great because it's the actors on set, you know, playing
of course
this part, and it looks really, really great to us. I would have loved to have been part of the creation of this episode and like a super nerd and been like, okay, but this time we're going to change how many flares are on this guy's head, or like that this person's like side of the ear fin thing going on with the blue eyes, that guy. Like maybe there's like fewer fins than the one. Like I would like to know what they fucked up, you know? And if I was a super fan, I'd be like, oh no, oh, his ear's too hot, you know, just something that would let us know what was wrong. Because the way that I interpret this is that he walked around and he gets this like little grin on his face at one point in time. And I was like, he knows it's fake. But then the build up, I was like, I didn't really, it kind of like, this is maybe my least favorite part was right after that. It just kind of took a knife to the tire of a bit, because it just turned into then watching Sisko wait and talking about how he's waiting. And I'm like, okay. And then he's walking around and now he's in the room. And then the reveal is there. I needed it to be told to me, whether it was true or not true. Like I needed to know what this person was going to do. And then if the rest of it sings, like I love that Garak had another plan in place, and it was maybe even from the beginning, a great backup plan at the very least, you know, explaining away how it would have been known. I think the idea is that he took it and examined it on the rod. Whatever. Oh, let me look, see if did I write down what this rod is
I'm not going to give it to you. I'm going to see if you got it.
Okay.
I'm sure you've got it in there.
The Optolithic data rod.
Optolithic data rod.
Lithic. I missed the C on the end. Gosh darn it. I'm assuming that it was on the deeper like evaluation that they realized it was a fake. But I wanted to believe it was in that moment because he gets this little like look, and I was like, oh, he knows. And I think like, was it that the paper on the desk was like a little bit weird? Because these are potentially people he knows. So how brave are they to be like, let's just, you know, that's Charles from accounting, you know?
Charles the Cardassian. My interpretation of this is you're gonna really like my interpretation, because I think it's gonna help you live your best dream.
Okay.
My interpretation is that as a classic Romulan, the replication, the hologram, everything is perfect. Everything is believable. He checks the table height, he checks the legs, he checks the clothing, he checks the decor. Everything is 100% perfect, and that's why he suspects it's a fake.
Oh.
Because there isn't a single imperfection.
There's
this line in I think it's in Tomorrow Never Dies in GoldenEye. They have James Bond has like this undercover thing, and they find out that he's James Bond and he's an agent because his bio was too perfect. I was like, really, guys? It was too good. That's the reason he got uncovered. So I would love to think that his first instinct was that, nah, too good, it's a fake. And then they find out. I always
assumed that the issue had to be something technical about how it was recorded. I think that's what it is. Because otherwise, Garak couldn't expect that a damaged optolithic data rod would pass, because they'd think that whatever was wrong with it was, because of the damage to the rod.
Yeah, the bottom line is it has to be some authentication thing that exposes it's replicated.
Yeah, that makes sense, because his backup plan wouldn't have worked unless it was somewhat damaged. No, you're right. But I loved the scene, and the it's a fake thing was really, really fun. It ends so quickly though. It's like a jarring, like, oh, like I kind of wanted it to go on like,
yes,
but like let the fake just roll on, or and it kind of, I think it cuts back over to Sisko's face.
Yeah, in his
I
log.
didn't want it. No, I think it happened in the scene.
Right.
I think it kind of like shows him going like, kind of like, oh shit. But I wanted it to cut back to the actor and his like hateful stare, like, I've got you. I'm taking you down.
Because guess what? He doesn't have to come back to Deep Space Nine. Once he finds that out, you don't walk back onto the ship and then risk getting whatever because you found out. But he wants that moment face to face with Sisko where he's exposed him.
And they do the right thing by making the progression of what happens next a captain's log, because a lot needs to happen. He needs to get mad. He needs to get upset. He needs to, I'm going to expose you. Watching Sisko have to be really embarrassed. All of those things are better done in the captain's log rather than watching them all in memory. But it's also kind of an interesting thing. Like, we didn't want to, like, Sisko chose not to talk about that in great detail because it was an embarrassment, and he didn't really want to spend a lot of time in his own log talking about it. Like, let's just get over the embarrassment.
Yeah, fuck that up.
And that seems very on point for let's just move on. I don't want to think about that mistake again. So then we know, then we're kind of up to now. I think that's the moment when the episode, you think, like, you're kind of like, oh, now we're caught up, because he's like, it was like it'll be 3 days later, and for a second I was like, oh right, we're still in the log.
Well, before we move on to that, Dave, do you remember at the time how you felt at the time, or like just the build up to this moment? Did you buy, like, where were you at? Did you think that they were going to buy the fake? Did you know that it was going to be a fake? Like, do you remember how that hit you?
I actually saw it go by in the chat real quick, and I thought the same thing, that Vreenak didn't really have any evidence that it was fake, and was just calling it out as a fake. That was my impression of it. And I think that this little segment is kind of in some ways the weakest point in the episode, because I wonder after Sisko has done all of these things, is there any way that he's just going to say, "Yep, you got me"?
Yeah,
I mean, he's going to have to at that point try and bluff it out and say, well, as far as we know, it's real, and there was no reason for us to suspect it was fake.
That's so true. Sisko didn't have to really admit to it.
No, and we don't see him either. We don't even see that conversation.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I just can't picture Sisko saying, "Yeah, Senator Vreenak,
well, it was worth a shot. You can't blame a guy for trying.
Thanks for coming by.
What's the whiskey? Really sorry." So,
do you remember that part of the chat that Garak had was like, "You're going to have to convince him"?
Yeah.
And then Sisko's like,
"Well, fucked it." Sorry. So Garak did it. There is that the whole fakeness of the thing leads into, this is something that Star Trek accidentally does more than once, and it's accidentally invented technology. We were not thinking, correct me if I'm wrong, I was only 8 at the time, we were not thinking about deep fake videos in 1998. And that is what, if we did this as like an episode of Black Mirror, or we did this as something topical today, this would focus on creating an AI video of political opponents saying something dangerous or something incriminating, and that getting released.
Yeah,
this
it's a little too real now.
It's a bit too real. When I was watching it, I was like, this is scary. This is happening. This can and could throw elections. But it's just, Star Trek just accidentally like introduces this into the world, doesn't explore it. It's not what the episode is about, but it would be today, I think, and the morals of creating that video. It's so interesting.
Yeah, we all need to be a bit more like this Romulan guy, Vreenak, and really just walk around and examine the pictures, look for too many toes, too many fingers.
Assume it's a fake.
Just assume it's a fake. Do your due diligence.
Love that so much.
Make sure you research all your pictures and your articles and your videos.
Triple source everything. Don't believe the internet.
And then whenever you get in your vehicle at the end of the day, maybe don't just trust that there's not a bomb on it when you went to go visit Deep Space Nine, okay?
Especially if you visited a place where Garak exists.
Right.
Anything else before we get into a few sins? Any final thoughts, Commander Dave?
Yeah, I just can't say enough good things about this episode. It's easy to when you dig into it with the for at least partially for the purpose of picking it apart, you can always find holes. But this episode, from the first time I saw it, was one of the most captivating things I had ever seen on Star Trek. The thing about Deep Space Nine that appealed to me over Next Generation was that Deep Space Nine seemed a lot more grounded in what current events then, but I mean, it's amazing now that it seems still prescient.
Mm-hmm.
It's so prescient at this point. But I liked the fact that everything was gray on Deep Space Nine, not the sets.
They are. Yeah.
But that there's a lot of moral ambiguity on Deep Space Nine that really wasn't very present in Next Generation, and I felt that it felt more grounded to me because of that. And this is probably the pinnacle of that for Deep Space Nine. This makes you think about, well, what would I do if I was actually in that situation, in a real life situation like that? How far am I willing to? What am I willing to become?
Yeah.
To make this outcome that I know is going to be better for everybody. Well, most everybody, except for
your
for
side.
millions of dead Romulans that now exist because of it. But it's just such a powerful episode, and it never loses that power.
I completely agree. I think that's it's such a powerful point. And I can't imagine being a fan of the show and watching this episode and how much more amplified the feelings are about the decisions that are being made. And like, I guess I have a question about like Sisko before we go on to Sins. And, I asked if like things changed for you for the Garak character, but I am really curious about Sisko because we've compared him to Picard, and obviously we've talked a bit about that. Like, did your view of Sisko change after this? Does it feel different when you're watching? And maybe it's been, like you said before, David, you've watched so much now, maybe it might be difficult to kind of remember specifically, but I would imagine if I was watching this in sequence that it would shift, because now you know that every time Sisko sees Quark, every time he sees the Doctor, every time he sees Garak, there's something that's different now and I think that this episode had to have the Starfleet check-in.
Oh, could you imagine if he didn't have
it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
He would have had to have stolen, the medical goods or whatever.
He probably would have had to kill Garak.
I mean, everything changes a bit. Like, you almost feel like his decisions are backed by this governing agency that we've come to kind of trust and enjoy. And this is that gray area that some of like the newer Star Trek, I feel like, goes into more, that I've heard you guys talk about. I haven't seen it, but I've heard talk, like on the Discord and on our show and just others kind of going into this area where it's like, oh, this is the more of that gray. But for Sisko, the thing that hits for me is the conversation he has with Quark.
Yeah.
And I kind of hinted at it earlier, that there's something that changes. Like, Quark is given a power over Sisko in this moment. And Quark just like relishes in it, of course. And he negotiates even having some of his cargo given to him that he shouldn't have, right? Yeah. And Quark is almost like, man, you went there. I'm proud of you. Like, there's these characters that are like, good job. Welcome to the gray side.
You don't want him to be proud of you.
But does that change Sisko's character for you in any kind of way that like changed the show?
It didn't for me, but it's interesting that, and again, without giving away too much, because toward the end of the 6th season, everything started moving full speed ahead on Deep Space. Occasional baseball games, notwithstanding.
Aside,
but apart from those 2 weeks where they played baseball and nothing else, there were a whole lot of other things happening, and it was kind of the beginning of Sisko kind of going against the grain. And he, not specifically for this, but he makes a lot of decisions going on that actually call into question how good his judgment actually is.
Okay.
I mean, he has a good, at least a decent arc at the end, and how it all resolves. But he starts doing things that are controversial, to the prophets, for instance, because he's been walking that line the whole series between being a Starfleet officer and being this religious figure to a whole planet full of people, which is wildly on Starfleet. Starfleet is very uncomfortable with that. He was at first, then he gets really comfortable with it to the point where he's like, I'm the emissary, I can do what I want.
Yeah,
and then things start happening, start going downhill for him. So I feel like this is kind of a tipping point for Sisko as far as that kind of thing goes. I didn't have a negative opinion about him. I thought deeply about this episode, and I thought probably I would probably do the same thing. I think I'd have trouble living with it afterwards, more so than Sisko does. But it didn't negatively affect my opinion of him. It made the character deeper, if anything.
Yeah.
I firmly land in the bucket that while I think I want lots of Picards, I'm glad we don't. I'm glad we have a variety of captains, and this moment is a pivotal moment for me for Sisko. It shows not just that we always kind of know he's capable of it, because early on they deliberately set him apart from Picard. Like the live chat has mentioned it a couple of times. Q only visits Deep Space Nine once because Sisko punches him off the station and Q never returns. And he literally says the words, "I'm not Picard," because Q is so offended that he's been punched. So you always know there's an edge to Sisko and there's a harshness to him. But he crosses a lot of lines one at a time, gradually. And whether it's right or wrong, I'm glad I never have to be in the position where I would have to make this, because I don't think I'm a strong enough character to make either decision. I think I would run. I don't think anything would have happened. I would have left Deep Space Nine and be on Risa somewhere. I would have quit my job. So the fact that he did it and can live with it, it's that last smile at the end where he's like, guess what? I can live with it and I will. That's where I'm like, you're a different breed. You're a different type of Starfleet captain. This really, like, you can point to this as the moment that defines Sisko and what he's capable of doing. So I don't think it changed. It confirmed what I had suspected Sisko was capable of.
I love that because it shows an intentional character arc with the writing. And I just really respect when a show has a plan and you can kind of see it kind of come out. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed Lost, but it just felt like to compare in my brain of an opposite, it's kind of like, oh, let's try this season. Oh, let's try this season. But whereas I always feel like Star Trek is really intentional with some things. And Ian, you've talked so many times about like when Gene was alive, having some really strong boundaries with certain areas that after his passing were sort of explored more and more. And Deep Space Nine is a not in one adventure every episode experimentation storytelling. Mm-hmm. And then within that to have a character arc of one of your main characters, not necessarily a slippery descent, but an intentional change of character potentially. So that's really cool for me. So thank you for telling me that. I think it's such an interesting thing to talk to two people who have had such long experiences with the show.
It's a great question, because Star Trek is famous for one episode memory, and one episode memory prevents deep character work like we see in Deep Space Nine. And Deep Space Nine for me is the perfect bridge between single episode bottle adventures and believable ongoing character arcs that pay off. And I don't think we haven't seen Star Trek like Deep Space Nine since Deep Space Nine. For me, it's incredible. Before we get into sins, final pippage. Dave, do I even need to ask?
You do not. Four pips all the way.
It's 4 pips. Ambassador, I don't know. I didn't actually ask for your final thoughts on the episode, Ambassador. So give us pips and your final thoughts about the episode.
I think this would be a really great episode of Star Trek to introduce to somebody who's who really likes like historical material, war movies, just things that kind of show about the decisions that have to be made in difficult times. It doesn't need any context. I don't think that you ever have to have seen an episode of Deep Space Nine to follow this one. So I'm really glad that I went into this one blind, because they do everything that you need to do to help understand the characters, their role, and these kinds of things. It's a really, really good episode of TV. And I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but I'm just am constantly impressed by the writing of this show. Not just this show, but like this series. Star Trek is just it's a really, really fun place to watch television.
Yeah.
When they're longer episodes and they're deeper episodes, I get a little nervous because there's more room for me to be like, oh, I'm finding some cracks here. But they kind of even do some unexpected things. It has a very dramatic ending. It feels really, really real. Yeah. This, like you said, Dave, this feels like a very true moment for a character to really struggle with something. It felt very personal because it's his own log and the way that it ends with wanting it to kind of just be deleted. And it's watching a character have something change them forever. Maybe not in a bad way, but in an uncomfortable way of their own doing. It highlights the character, it highlights the decisions and how they impact your crew, and that he has the authority to tell people to do what he wants to do and to make choices that makes me uncomfortable, which is a really, really powerful thing to do in 40 some minutes of television. So definitely a 4 pip for me.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I love that we did go into it blind, because this is selfishly a test of In the Pale Moonlight. Not that it needs testing, not that it needs to defend itself, but if you can go into it quasi-blind and it still stands up, then it seals it even more as just a story that works regardless of context. It really does give you everything you need, even if you haven't met any single character. You know they're at war, you know it's going badly. It even tells you how important Beta Z is. You don't have to know any of that.
Yeah.
It's so completely beautifully crafted. And to do that in season 6, when you don't necessarily need to, because I don't know that many people are watching this episode that haven't been with you along the ride. Like, the odds of somebody suddenly tuning in at episode 19 of the 6th season, you don't have to pander to that person. But the fact that it does, and not even pander, the fact that it pulls that off is just, again, one of the reasons why it's an all-timer. It's 4 pips from me as well. I refuse to sin it. I'm going to leave. However, I don't actually refuse to sin it.
Of course not.
Of course not. Let's head over to engineering for a few sins. 3 to beam out. This is the part of the show where we re-engage our sin brains, remind ourselves that no TV shows without sin, even our beloved Star Trek. Dave, I have a sneaking suspicion that this is going to be quite a cathartic experience for you, and I think you probably have the most, so you can go first, sir.
Well, yeah, the absolute biggest sin is a huge "this works."
Yes, right. That's it. That's exactly it.
So in order for Garak's backup plan to work, an optolithic data rod the size of a pack of lifesavers not only has to survive the explosion of the starship, and even Garak says miraculously survive, but it also has to be found amongst the wreckage of that starship in the vastness of space in order for this plan to work at all.
Yeah.
And not vaporized by the Dominion.
And it still has to be working.
Yes. Yeah, it's incredible. There is an amount of chance that comes into it. Yeah, there is a lot that has to go off without a hitch. Like,
was the box that it was inside of like have a homing beacon, and then it was complete? Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was blown into space, most likely. There's no way to know. It was all very much this whole thing works for me. I kept asking myself, like, but how do you know for sure that was going to work? And
it's the kind of thing that sounds really impressive when you explain it convincingly and confidently, but then when you break it apart, it's like, nah, you couldn't have actually known that, Sherlock.
My sin was consistently like, there's just too many people that know what's going on already somehow, right? Like, once Bluey shows up and is out in the bar causing a scene, it just seems like too many people know already. But maybe that's just silly too. Like, there's just a lot.
No, I agree. It was one of my biggest sins. I know Taylor dies, but he is still
on the ship.
He's on the ship,
the station.
He's allowed to leave without a personal escort. Like, Worf should be escorting him everywhere. He wanders off to the bar, and also Starfleet knows about the plan. There are people at Starfleet that could leak it and be a whistleblower or something. Like this is not I think to be truly foolproof, there are things that Sisko couldn't do, which would be tie up Taylor and vaporize him as soon as it's happened. Don't run it through Starfleet at all. It's only he and Garak that knows, and probably kill Garak as well. Yeah, and that is way too far for Starfleet.
My sin for Blue is just like, this guy cannot be unforgotten. Like
he exists. People are going to wonder probably why he died.
Like, where did he go?
You got to wonder if maybe when Sisko called in this plan to Starfleet, they just at the switchboard they were like, don't tell me too much. I'm transferring. Section 31 will take your call.
Yeah, exactly. Just no, that's a great sin. Why didn't Section 31 think of this? This is why you have a Section 31. It's amazing. I've got a really silly sin, but he should have immediately be able to figure out it was a fake because it was all in English. They were all talking English, so we should have known.
No, it was a translator. You always have to remember those universal translators. But they're everywhere.
But the lips on the holograms were speaking English words.
Quit it. That's funny.
Dave, back to you. I'm standing by that one.
Well, the other really big sin for me was why didn't Vreenak immediately contact Romulus and tell them what Sisko did? It's 2 days before his ship. 2 days before his ship was destroyed. So for 2 days, he's flying on his little ship,
just keep it a
not
secret,
saying anything to anybody. He's like, wait till I get back to Romulus. Crazy. I got to see that. Look them in the eye when we do this.
Yeah,
they're gonna love this. It's so ridiculous that in my head, I manufactured a false memory where his ship explodes as it leaves Deep Space Nine. I remembered that happening until today, and I think I remember this every time I watch it. And I was like, wait, why doesn't he blow up yet? It's 2 days later? What? That's ridiculous. Like, my brain refuses to lock that in as the end of the episode.
This is a super nitpicky one, but that's what we do.
Yeah.
There is a couple of times, I wrote this. So here's my sin is, but you said that it was your first mistake earlier because in his like face to camera confessions, after he talks to Quark, it goes face to camera, and he said this isn't the first real moment of doubt. This whole thing was a mistake. But the face to camera one previous to that was with Bluey when he says Garak is here. I'll go wait in my quarters, and then he goes face to camera, and he had just said not to believe the voice in the back of my head that this was a mistake.
Yes.
So it's like he had many times of realizing he was making a mistake before it was further down the line, and even how they wrote it, it was like, okay, but when did maybe his real mistake was not knowing how to say it was the first time he made a mistake.
Yeah. I don't know. There's even a mistake.
That could be the point, but it was kind of annoying. I'm like, but you just said that was your first mistake, but you just said mistake.
You labeled it. And there's a mistake previous to that when the 3 operatives die. And then Garak gives the option of releasing Taylor as somebody that he needs to get hold of. And that's a point where he's like, I could have backed out then, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm going to say on the silly sins, this is when Garak and Sisko are in the turbo lift. And just if you pause a turbo lift, does that just pause everybody? Is there nobody that can now get to ops because they're in that turbo lift for so long? Are they just creating a blockage?
Yeah.
Like there's only so many times you can go around a blockage in the system. So I would put that in there. But I do love also in that moment how quickly Sisko is like, ops.
Yes.
Pause. And then immediate backpedal. Was like, okay, I can't do 200, but 85. Like, It's such an immediate, like, Garak doesn't have to say a thing, and I can just see all of the processing that happens in Sisko's brain.
Before we go on to the next one, I do want to say too, in the chat earlier, I forgot to figure out who said it. Sorry about this, but it was implied that they thought that the what Garak did with the bio thing, I was saying what happened to the bio stuff.
Oh, yes.
They had implied that Garak actually used that to blow up the shuttle because it was mentioned on the list of things that this goop can do besides bioengineering, that it could also be used as a weapon. So, here it is from Random Mochi. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I always assume.
I think I agree with that though.
I love that idea because it kind of explains it's another beautiful layer of Garak securing something for himself.
Exactly.
But I always assumed that it was a program or something because Garak's like, they'll never know that I was anywhere near the ship because he wasn't. He did it all remotely and just managed to put a code in there that blew it up or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
No, go for it. Dave, your turn.
While we're on the biomimetic gel,
yes.
Sisko says that that's ridiculous. There's not 200 liters of that in the entire quadrant.
Oh yeah.
And then he's like, and then they're like 85, which they had in Deep Space Nine.
Yes!
They had almost half of it right there on the station.
He didn't even have to like replicate it, find it. But she was just like, yeah, I've got it, but I'm not going to give it to you. Like, yeah, that you stole my next sin. It is ridiculous how much they have to hand. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I don't have any more. I can steal some from the chat.
Do it. Steal them from the chat. I'm going to give you my last silly one because Dave stole my only really serious sins. And this is when Sisko says, experience has told me that bad news comes in the night. Title of my sex tape. Back to you, Dave. Give us something serious.
Well, I was going to go on that one because another silly one in that same scene is, does Sisko sleep with all the lights on?
Yes.
Because the room was just absolutely fully lit when he woke up.
Yep, absolutely. Maybe he's like, whenever he gets a communication, it immediately turns the lights on. Like, no wonder he's always angry.
This is a silly one from Sci-Fi Brony. Sin, reminder to Danae that all of the Take Me Out to the Hollow Suite is probably supposed to take place in a room that is only that size.
No, it's bigger than that because of conveyor belts and stuff. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
It's funny.
My next one. What did I did have one. Where is it gone? Oh man, it just jumped into my head and then left. What was it?
Okay, well, you vamp on that. I'll be right back.
Yep. Dave, give us your next one while I try and pull that out of my brain.
Okay, so when Dax is looking at the casualty list at the beginning of the episode, she's standing there looking concerned, runs her finger down the list, stops when she finds a name, and then just walks away. She was only in the second column. Oh. There might have been 10 people she knew on that list, but she was like, whoop, one's enough.
Good point. As if they're rationing them out.
She was looking for one specific person. Is that person dead yet? Yes.
Fuck everyone else. Yes, they died. They're the only one that beat me at the academy. That's a really, really good point. Well, what's weird is Wolf doesn't even look. Wolf's not interested at all. Like, you think he'd be celebrating the deaths of all of his
whatever. It was a good day to die.
Yeah, exactly. There was another one that I had, which was, I don't really understand why, and you can probably help me out with this. Why does Renak agree to go to Deep Space Nine? Because this is not a good tactical move on the part of the Romulans, because they're on their way to a diplomatic meeting with the Dominion. I guess maybe he could use it as I've had talks with the Federation as well, so maybe you should sweeten the deal. But it seems, what does he think he's going to gain from that trip? Because the Federation are on the back foot. Like, it's almost in his interest to not be tempted into doing something silly or something that puts Romulan lives at risk. So I think one of the most convenient things is getting Renak to agree to this trip to Deep Space Nine, and we don't even see that conversation happen. He just agrees to it.
Yeah, I actually had that one too, because there's no logical reason that Renak would accept an invitation from Sisko to go with only 4 people behind enemy lines to
one of the most dangerous places right now as well, Deep Space Nine. So yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Well, another thing that I don't think that, and this is another kind of nitpicky one, is does Sisko really have the kind of pull that he needs to just call Gowron and say, hey, this guy that you're going to execute, could you let him go and send him here?
Again,
that so quickly happens too. It's like just a casual mention, like, but to do it, you're going to have to call this guy and get this guy to come in. And the next scene's like, well, there's the guy. There he is.
Yeah, it's very telling when those conversations happen off screen.
Yes.
So it's like, you didn't have a convincing way to do that, but I guess there's timing as well.
I want to see that scene.
Any scene with Gowron, because Gowron is the Klingon with the crazy eyes.
Yes.
Like,
wait, which there? what they all have great. What?
No, this guy specifically has. Look up Gowron Crazy Eyes.
Crazy Eyes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I see now.
Any scene with Gowron is a needed scene.
When you say Crazy Eyes, I feel like what you specifically need to describe to anyone who has not seen Gowron, it is that it is a white pool cue ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you can see all of the white around the pupil.
90% white, 10% actual pigment.
That's amazing.
It's absolutely incredible. Ambassador, any others?
No, I do want to give a send-off. I really loved Bluey's prosthetics.
Yes.
I loved it so much. You know, I'm a huge fan of really fun like creature work, and Face Off was one of my favorite reality TV shows for quite some time when it was on. I love prosthetic work, and it was so beautiful. I want to know more about that creature. I don't know if we know what that creature, like what their alien species is or where they're from or anything, but that one needs to make a comeback because it was beautiful. And the person that was acting inside of that prosthetic was doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Because they kind of had this little kind of thing going on.
Yes.
And it really was the humor that we needed in this episode that's lacking so much humor. Quark and Bluey are the only real relief I can think of that we have. I mean, the show forces a little Dax and Sisko moment, like, oh, that role play was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah,
but that didn't work for me because I'm not as like jiving with the two of them.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, they're two of my least favorite Deep Space Nine characters, but these guys were like super fun, and like Quark's prosthetics close up and the humor with like, don't you know how expensive this shirt is, and just sort of lightening up that moment. There was even a line about like Quark showing his what did they say? Chivalry?
Yeah, I guess.
Was it
an uncharacteristic display of chivalry?
Yes,
saving the Dubbo girl.
Yeah, so the pair of them were really fun, and of course the Ferengi prosthetics. It's just so interesting to see that when the camera zooms in, that it's holding up. Like the teeth are looking good, and the headpiece is looking good. So it's just a delight, and that's one of the things
I've always felt the same way about the Cardassian prosthetics. I thought they're very fully realized aliens, and it's not just the facial stuff because they've got the shoulder piece too, and on it also extends to the hands when you see close-ups of the hands.
Yeah, so it's so cool.
The scale
it's really well done.
Yeah. It's fun because the prosthetics world obviously just gets better and better with materials that are used. Like when we went to the museum and we saw some of the older materials, you know, very styrofoam and foam based, which are obviously thicker and more difficult. Now we've got like the silicone, and it's just fantastic. But yeah, there's a reason I love sci-fi.
Yeah.
And it is because we get to see really interesting things brought to life. And so I loved that Deep Space Nine gave me one that I hadn't seen yet. I hadn't seen Little Bluey before.
I'm always amazed when they decide to do that amount of prosthetic work in a character we never see again, in an alien race I don't think we see again, in a part that's on screen for less than 5 minutes. Like, that is hours and hours and hours of work, where in other episodes, they pass with like a nose ridge or some painting.
Right.
Like, who made that call that this episode deserved 12 hours of incredible prosthetic work? And it always seems to be the criminals. I think it's something about making the criminal aliens really memorable. Yeah. And like this extra level of like skeeziness to him. So it's
well, even Odo is really unique as well. I've seen Odo before, so I don't want to forget about that character either. But like just having your entire face just be like this kind of more smooth thing and still being able to emote with your voice. It's just so powerful. Sean in chat points out that the trick for the Kardashian prosthetics is that there's 5 pieces and most of the actor's face is unlike most of the other aliens. So that was cool.
That's really, really cool. Have we ever talked about why Odo looks the way he looks? It's one of my favorite bits of Star Trek logic.
Because he's part putty?
Well, it's because he's putty, but because when he was learning to shapeshift, he tried to emulate the first person that he met, but he wasn't very good at his powers. So he's trying to emulate a human, and that's his best approximation So it is the bug becomes the feature, and then the founders just emulate Odo. So it's not necessarily what the founders look like. It's just that Odo isn't a very good shapeshifter.
So hold on a second.
Uh-huh.
Can Odo try harder now and just chooses not to?
He just chooses not to, yeah.
So it's like
it's what the face people are used to.
He's just comfortable in that particular 100%. Form.
Yeah. I always figured it became his identity, because he does.
Yes.
When he meets the founders, he does start shape-shifting into like birds and other animals. He can
be a highly detailed eagle.
Really well. But I felt like that he accepted that as his personality, and that's who he was.
Oh, that's so interesting. Imagine it. Like, I guess it's sort of it just becomes comfortable.
Yeah. And it would be a bit jarring to the people around him if he suddenly changed what he looks like that fundamentally. So yeah.
That's such a cool little thing. I love that. I love that idea of just like, nope, I sneeze and form this way, and this is where I'm comfortable now.
This was my best attempt. I guess I'm gonna, and that's why all the features are smooth, because detail is hard. So
detail is difficult when you're a little shapeshifter and you don't know how to pay attention to details.
Love it so much. Well, I think that about wraps us up. What an incredibly fun episode. Pretty much, I think, the perfect way to wrap up the season. Dave, thank you for joining us so much. Always love hearing your Star Trek insight.
Thanks for having me. I love talking about this episode. I could talk about this episode for days.
But just this one, no other Star Trek at all.
Yeah, I hardly ever talk about Star Trek.
Never, not at all. Where can people find you? Do you have anything to plug at the minute? What are you doing with yourself?
Well, I haven't made any other Star Trek films since 359, but I have written a couple. I've actually let you read them. You can still watch 359, and you can check out my home arcade if you're interested in pinball machines and all the stuff that I've got there. At my website, ellis1701.com. Should be ezy enough to remember.
What is the significance of that number? I don't understand. It's also all of his passwords.
Oh no. It was the founding of Yale College.
Oh, was it actually 1701? Did you just make that up?
I just Googled it.
That's amazing. That's brilliant. Well, absolute pleasure to join us. Next up on Captain's Pod, we are going to be taking, and I can hear the collective sadness. I'm so sorry. We will be taking a hiatus for a little while because a certain captain is moving homes. He is going to be reshuffling his entire life. That is not conducive to having internet and squeezing in recordings. So Captain's Pod will be taking a break. Now, we had teased that the next season would either be Origin of the Species or the worst/weirdest Star Trek ever. And it's no surprise to anybody that the worst/weirdest Star Trek won. We had multiple. I've already got 50 episodes that have been sent to me. That season is locked in. If we return before Strange New Worlds, we will be doing the worst/weirdest episodes of Star Trek. Our lovely Discord has named it What the F? So What the Fun Star Trek? Because it can also double as What the Fuck Star Trek. So you can interpret that as whatever you like. So yeah, if we're back before...
Not the worst, the weird.
The weirdest. If we're back before Strange New Worlds airs, we will do a season of the weirdest Star Trek. If not, you'll definitely see us for Strange New Worlds. Anything else, Ambassador, before we wrap it up?
Nope. I would just say enjoy the hiatus. Think of a goal that you have in mind and try to accomplish it before we get back.
Yeah.
If you want to have support in your Star Trek-ing while we are gone, join the Discord because others just like you are there who like to share silly memes and troll us.
I love pitching that as a Star Trek support group.
Yeah. Because we don't exactly know how long the hiatus will be, but we will post updates on Discord as we have them. That's kind of our place for those updates. Yeah. So, but you're always welcome to email us no matter what, whether you've got questions, suggestions, and I secretly hope we can put something up in the feed. Just for funsies, even if it's just something like that's small and an update. But if you want to know about like the most up-to-date info, you can find it on discord.gg/cinemasins. And then we have a Captain's Pod little group inside of the CinemaSins Discord.
Yeah, we do. Well, until next week, thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you for downloading. Send us whatever you want to send us, captainspod@cinemasins.com. Join the lovely CinemaSins Discord, discord.gg/cinemasins, and join the Captain's Pod channel. And until next time, I'm Captain Ian, and I lied. I cheated. I bribed men to cover the crimes of other men. I am an accessory to murder. But the most damning thing of all is I think I can live with it.
Whoa.
From me.
Dave, do you have one? You want to go next?
I probably took all of it.
Its computer erased that entire personal log.
Oh, yes.
And there are some things I would rather not discuss. May I continue? From me.
Live long and Podspur. Man, if there was a way to delete the entire episode as soon as somebody listened to it, that would be the most meta thing ever.
Oh my God.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, your prediction was wrong. None of us did. It's fake. Can you believe it? We didn't do it.
So close to doing it.
But we did do the.
It's a sign of a great episode that there were 3 people on and we still didn't hit all of the best quotes of the episode.
It's a good episode. It's a really, really good episode.
I'm so glad you liked it.
I could
really am.
never do this on my own. Link. It would fall apart. It would fall apart so fast.
I'd watch it so quick.
Yeah. I would. Okay, if it was going to be a Danae episode, I would start off by not having a plan at the very beginning, and I would.
You wouldn't know what episode you're watching.
I don't know what I'm doing. I would go to some sort of like website to pick a random thing between 1 and whatever, and that's the episode that I would watch. And then I'd watch it, and I'd come onto the show, and I would be like, guys, some stuff happened, and I have no idea what it means, but I like this part, and that's all I know. And nobody would have names correct. We wouldn't know any history. It would be so boring.
I don't know how you're saying anything people wouldn't want to listen to.
No, there's no way. I would. You know what, Sean? I would do anything Frakes, because I really did like the ones that Frakes did.
Frakes.
It's a Frakes.
It's a Frakes. Oh, that's great.
Oh man.
JCD says, so some baseball trivia for Ian to explain. What's a ground rule double? It is when you hit the ball into the ground, but it's out of bounds and you automatically get 2 runs.
And that's that.
Is my guess.
Okay, let's go through. We didn't clear the chat from last time, so hold on a second. Let's see. Oh, because we're just talking about pickles from last week. By the way, how did you recover from those pickles last week?
Violently. It was nobody wants to be near that. That was disgusting.
Dave, he at a store, he picked up a pouch that had a pickle inside of it, and it was like spicy flavored. But then when he bit into it, it just tasted like old plastic.
It really did. It was
like spicy old plastic. It was gross.
Hideous. So I did not enjoy that.
That'll teach you to trust pouch pickles,
right?
And gas stations. It's really just my own fault.
Here's a question from Ian. Have you seen the new season of Doctor Who?
I have actually. I've watched the first 2 episodes. I've just been sent access to episode 3 because I've got some screeners, but I can't say anything about it. I really enjoyed episode 2. I somewhat enjoyed episode 1, but I've actually joined up with the Lorehounds. So if you search for Sonic Screwcast in your podcast player of choice, you'll hear myself, Alicia, and John talk about Doctor Who thoughts. We're not going to be covering every single episode because of the reason that we're pausing Captain's Pod, but we're going to be doing a few of them. So if you want to hear my thoughts about Doctor Who, go over to the Sonic Screwcast.
Oh, here's one for you, Dave, just from Link earlier, that they really enjoyed your video.
Yeah.
So just wanted to make sure you saw that. So good. This one popped in from Sarah. Have seen Garak? I did, but it was on the Lower Decks one where he and the Doctor were already, they had this kind of fun little back and forth relationship going on. I feel like it was were they on another space station? Was it the one that was kind of falling apart? I feel like I'm seeing them in like a weird food court or something.
You're thinking about
Boimler's ship.
You're thinking about Starbase 80, but it was on the Anaximander. So it was when they were. It's a parallel timeline. They've like pulled together this crew from different timelines to sort
lots of Harry Kims.
Yes, lots of Harry Kims. That was it.
Oh, okay. That's when I saw Garak. So I had kind of Although I do remember seeing this character maybe pop in an episode or just somehow. So it was a familiar look to me, but I've never watched Garak before.
We've accidentally dodged him somehow. I don't think he's really properly appeared.
Did he appear like at the very top of Deep Space Nine? Has he always been on Deep Space Nine, or did they introduce him in a later season?
About four or five episodes in. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And he's one of the Deep Space Nine did some, I mean, I think it's probably the serialized nature of Deep Space Nine that made it happen, but a lot of the characters who are secondary characters got not only great episodes but great arcs through the entire series, and Garak is one of those. He gets a great arc that starts in the first season and goes all the way to the end.
He feels the most fleshed out from day one. Like if somebody told me, oh, we know exactly where he's going to be 7 years from now, I'd believe you, because it's so consistent and so good.
Link said, is Quark like Data to Danae? Nope.
Not even close.
No. Data is like this in this sacred bubble of love. And Quark is like an ass that I enjoy watching. He is an ass.
Yeah.
Looking kind of character. But yeah.
That's racist.
No, I enjoy him because he is a very fun to watch character, whether it was because of the writing or the way that it's acted or the way that the acting influenced the writing or whatever soup happened to make Quark.
Yeah.
I really respect the character and enjoy the character, but Data is he's in like a little place all his own.
For context, we were doing the Search for Spock book yesterday with Iris, and we flicked open a page, and Danae said, "Is that Data?" Right, we're not looking for Data.
He was on one of the pages. It was amazing.
Yes, that was Data.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So no, not quite the same for me. Let's see. What other ones did we save to look at? Highly recommend the book A Stitch in Time. It's an audiobook detailing the background of Garak.
So good. So
there
good.
You go. So if you guys
and Andrew Roberts wrote it.
Yeah. He's the man that knows. He has fully taken on Garak as much as Michael Dorn has taken on Worf, for sure.
Amadio Ho says, to be fair, the Borg did not pose an imminent threat to the Federation when Picard had his choice with Hugh, and Picard had Q as a backup. So kind of a different situation.
I see that, but I think while the Borg exist, they're always a threat. I think it's just because they never declare war, they just are.
Wandering says, ironically, I feel that there isn't enough everything changes to the rest of the series after this episode. Basically, the only change is that the Romulans are in. There doesn't really seem to be enough character change for me. I was glad to read that, because it is an interesting
I can see that.
part of, seems to me from an outside perspective, a lot of things would change after this because the captain does something so off the books.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of internalized. Like, we know it happened, but yeah.
Especially with a doctor. Can you imagine being a doctor protecting this very specific material, and your commander just comes and says, just give me all of what we have and don't ask questions. And he's like, I'm going to report this. And he's like, so? And then I'm going to object this. Great, do it. Like, I would lose some element of trust with my hierarchy if that happened.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I agree with that.
So
no, I think that probably, and this gives away a little bit, but probably a little bit of what is a buffer with Bashir and Sisko is that Bashir gets involved with Section 31 eventually, and Sisko gives him a big pass on that. So maybe they wrote it off as offsetting penalties.
That makes sense. Yeah, I can see that.
Thank you guys for being here for the live show. You make the show so fun. We love coming here every week. You will be missed. We do not have a return date just yet, but we will return as soon as we can. As Ian said, it'll either be for the start of the next kind of interim season before Strange New Worlds, or it will be Strange New Worlds, just depending on what happens, because we're kind of a little bit in a hiatus where life is happening and we've got to let life do what life does. So my only animal story for this week is that Thunderstorm went to the vet and he has gained some pounds since becoming my cat.
Surprise!
And I have been hand slapped by Ian, and gently reminded by his original neighbor mom, that maybe I shouldn't be feeding him as much as I do. And I am struggling with that. And so is the cat, because the last 24 hours have been him really emphatically meowing at me to get my ass in gear and put something on his plate, because it is empty and I'm struggling. But
his meows are turning more into meow.
Also, when I did not feed him, he went into the backyard and climbed a tree to find a bird, and I had to ask help to go out to the yard and coax the cat out of the tree. This is a real story. I did not take pictures because I was so entertained, but also worried the cat was climbing the tree, sniffing a spot where a bird nest used to be, looking for food.
Yeah, probably a bird nest he'd already vacated.
But my neighbor did say that she's very thankful for how much I love the cat and I'm taking good care of him. So it's not like a, hey, bitch, you took my cat. It's more like a, we could probably not feed him as much, because I do
portion sizes.
Smaller portion.
What a surprise! America has a problem with portion sizes.
For context, Dave, I stole my neighbor's cat.
I know all about that.
Knows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's my animal story.
Oh my gosh, puppy cam!
Look at that.
That's Irina. She's been here the whole time. She's been very quiet.
Oh, she's
That's
so sweet.
Amazing.
I am the automatic feeder, Sean.
Yes,
so
she is.
You will be missed, and continue to enjoy the conversations on Discord. We really appreciate all of you who are there as well. And once again, thanks for those who are watching this later, for watching all the way to the end. We appreciate those views, and we will check you guys later. Don't forget to tell people about our show. If you like our podcast, please continue to tell people about it. Okay, we love you. Bye.
Don't press the button yet.
Oh.
You can press the button now.
Bye.